Hello and welcome to the FanDuel Punch-Out. I'm Big Italy 42 here talking about tonight's slate, of course, and it's going to be a good slate for pitching. Hopefully, unlike the last few we've had here, where we've had some aces get shelled over the past few nights. But Steven Strasburg ended up doing well last night, but Mets pitchers got hit pretty hard. Iwakuma a couple nights ago, so tonight tons of aces on the mound. So hopefully these guys actually pay off, and I can't expect that they don't. So I'll give you my top options here. I'm looking at Chris Sale, of course, $12,500 against Boston. He comes in as a minus 190 favorite. And this is a guy who is just absolutely locked in right now. We saw him struggle for a couple starts there a few weeks back. But over his last two starts, 14 innings pitched, 29 strikeouts. So he's as good as it gets on this slate and really on most slates here. But you know, this is a guy that it's facing a Boston offense that was absolutely on fire there for about a week or so. Still hitting the ball pretty well, but this is a team that's also much better against right-handed pitching than left-handed pitching. You look at their overall numbers for the season, they're getting up there against left-handed pitching now, up to 5th in Team WOBA. But, I mean, this is a team that, I mean, they're scary, yes, but Chris Sale is as good as it gets, striking out over 33% of batters this season. So this is a guy that certainly has the opportunity to shut down any offense, even hot offenses. And 15.6% swing and strike rate right there tells you that he could definitely navigate any lineup that you throw in his way. So Chris Sale for me, he's $700 more than Chris Archer, who I also really like. I think if the $700 makes a difference for you, I think you could go with Archer. I still prefer Sale, but Archer in himself right here, 3 of his last 5 starts with 10 or more strikeouts. He's rolling. He's facing a team in Minnesota that is the worst offense in all of baseball against or on the road. Not particularly great against right-handed pitching either. So this is a team that ranks 24th in the league against right-handed pitching. And I mean, Chris Archer coming off a ridiculous performance at Houston. 1 walk in a complete game. So Chris Archer, your option 1B or 1A, I should say. You got David Price against Texas. Texas is a team that, you know, at home, obviously a very scary team. We may be dealing with a little bit of heat here today. Doesn't look like a ton, but this is a team that is very good against right-handed pitching. But fortunately for David Price, he is a lefty, and this is a team that's not a great team against lefties. 12th in the league, which isn't too bad, but 22.1% strikeout rate. They do have that 156 team ISO, which is solid, but Price, you know he's going to pitch deep into the game. You look at his last 8 games, he's pitched 8 innings in 4 of them, and he's had a 12 strikeout game, 11 strikeout game, a 9 and 8. So this is a guy that's been very good recently, especially since moving over to Toronto. You also expect he's going to get himself plenty of run support with Colby Lewis on the mound on the other side. So David Price, not too far behind these other guys here. If you're looking for cheaper options, there's a couple guys that kind of stand out. The Angels are an offense that still continues to struggle, and Justin Verlander, while he's not the pitcher he once was, over his last 3 starts, he's gone 20 innings with 22 strikeouts. So, and 6 walks. You don't like that, but 14, 14, and 13 fantasy points in those games without getting the win in any of them. These guys pitching well. $8,000 may be a little pricey for cash games. I'm paying up for cash games anyway, so he's obviously a tournament option there. Other tournament options you can consider, you get guys like Tyson Ross, who has upside, but he has risk, so he's not a guy I'll be looking at very much. I'm looking down a little bit cheaper. A guy like Patrick Corbin, who did get shelled in his last start, but we know he's got upside. He's got great stuff. And once again, this is a Cardinals team that struggles against left-handed pitching. They did some damage last night, but I'm a believer in Patrick Corbin. I certainly will not be even coming close to him in cash games. I think you got to pay up for one of these top guys here once again. But I do think he's an interesting option. Only $6,800 for your tournaments. Another guy that's pitching very well. He's opposed by Chris Archer, so his chances of getting the win are very, very small. But Tyler Duffy, last 2 starts, 13 2/3 innings. He has given up 11 hits, but 15 strikeouts during that span. So this is a guy that, you know, he gave 2 earned runs last start, 0 in the one before that. $5,900. He's not a guy that you necessarily expect to continue pitching this well, but Tampa Bay is a team that hits lefties very well. They do not hit righties very well. So $5,900. I think he's a guy you can mix in your tournaments if you want to get some expensive players, maybe some expensive stacks. Outside of these guys, you can throw in Brett Anderson. He's I've said this a bunch of times. He's a guy that's just okay. Never a guy I have a ton of faith in. Reds don't strike out a lot. It's obviously a hitter's park. Reds also have a ton of power against lefties, but $7,200, I think he's probably your safest of these middle option guys here. And nobody else really stands out. I mean, Jimmy Nelson is a sexy pick sometimes in the middle, but he struggles with left-handed batters, and this is a team that is loaded with left-handed batters. 368 WOBA allowed for him, so that's a pass for me. I'm not going to be targeting him against all these lefties. Johnny Cueto is the other guy you can consider. 11.5. I think I'd rather pay for Sailor Archer, but this is a Baltimore team that strikes out a ton against right-handed pitching, so can certainly consider him, but I think he's more of a GPP option for me tonight, though. All right, catcher options for tonight. Once again, John Jaso's got to be your de facto cash game play. Men's salary, batted cleanup last night. Now he gets Tyler Duffy. Was good last night, 2 for 4 with a double. Had a walk, an RBI, run scored. Did a little bit of everything there. A couple other guys continue to be underpriced. Victor Martinez, $2,700 against the fly ball pitcher Santiago. He has not been playing well, but I don't mind paying down, I should say, for him against a lefty because he has hit lefties much better than righties this season. And Hector Santiago, definitely a fly ball pitcher, which does not bode well for him against a team that hits for a lot of power. So that's certainly a guy to consider. A couple other options for you. Travis d'Arnaud, about an 8th last night, much to the chagrin of myself and others. But $3,400, not a terrible price for a guy that's been really locked in recently. So I think he's more of a tournament option for those reasons, but definitely a guy I'll be considering. Buster Posey's only $3,100 against Kyle Hendricks. You don't necessarily love the spot. Hendricks has actually been pretty good, but this is a guy that, I mean, he's the best hitting catcher in all of baseball. Has struggled recently, but $3,100 is an insane price for him. And then 2 little middle tier guys for you. Jonathan Lucroy now has 3 homers in his last 2 games. He has 8 hits over his last 4 games. He's a guy that seems like whenever you feel like he's in a great spot, he struggles. When he's not in a great spot, he does well. Cody Anderson, though, he does not miss any bats, and I mean any bats. You look at his strikeout rate on the season, and it is a whopping 10.4%. So this is a guy that has had some struggles with the long ball, 1.13 per 9. Hasn't pitched a whole lot, but Lucroy certainly has some upside there. And Miguel Montero is now homered in 3 straight games. Gets Jake Peavy tonight, and Jake Peavy, certainly not a great pitcher by any means. Not the pitcher he once was. He's not awful against lefties, but 317 WOBA. A guy that I don't mind picking on a little bit in tournaments there. Moving to first base options. I mean, you got to like guys like Evan Encarnacion, Miguel Cabrera, but both guys over 5K, so those are tournament options. I think the guy I'll be playing in cash games more than likely is Albert Pujols. He's $3,500. Hit a 3-run homer last night. He's been solid recently. He's got 4 games of 5+ in his last 10 games, each of those with a home run. Obviously, Justin Verlander, I mentioned earlier, as a GPP option. He hasn't been pitching badly, but Albert Pujols at 35 just seems very underpriced. You got some other guys in pretty tough matchups. Joey Votto's in a lefty-lefty matchup. I think he's still an okay play, but not at $4,700. I think that's a little bit too much for him there. You got Anthony Rizzo. He's in an okay spot, but he's at San Francisco. He's expensive as well. I'm always looking at Jose Abreu. Rick Porcello, much worse against lefties than righties, but at $4,300, you can certainly side with Jose Abreu in this matchup about 99 times out of 100. And Adam Lind, once again, another guy picking on Cody Anderson. Hasn't been very good recently, but $3,700. I don't think he's a bad option. And as far as cheap guys, I like Michael Kadire if he's back in the lineup tonight at $2,800 against Jared Eichhoff. Pitched well in his first start, but this is a Mets team that is just on fire right now. So any cheap pieces I can get, I'm certainly looking that way. Second base, I said it last night, and man, did he ever come through. Jason Kipnis, way too cheap. Ended up with 10.75 points. He is the guy you play in your cash games. I can't imagine overthinking this one. You click in Jason Kipnis and you move on. But I will give you a couple more. He's actually $100 cheaper today, but I'll give you a couple more options if you don't want to play him. Daniel Murphy, still on fire here, $4,300. He's very expensive, but you got to like his spot. Ian Kinsler's been killing left-handed pitching. He's $4,200. He's in play, certainly. Anthony Rendon against Tyson Ross. You don't like the righty-righty. Tyson Ross has been good against righties, but he certainly has some upside there. And then if you're looking for cheaper guys, Brandon Phillips at $3,200. By the way, all of these guys more expensive than Jason Kipnis, so just keep that in mind. Neil Walker I won't be playing from the right side of the plate. He's been much better from the left side. And then as you scroll down for cheaper guys, the only guy that you really consider here Scooter Gennett, $2,400 against Cody Anderson, but that's merely just a punt play for you there. One other guy that did hit two home runs last night, Jed Jerko, $2,400, gets a lefty. He does hit lefties much better than righties, so if you need a punt with some power, Jerko's the way to go. Third base options, Josh Donaldson, $6,200 again. Rewarded his owners that paid for him last night with a 0, but we know the kind of upside that he has. Obviously facing Colby Lewis, who is better against righties and lefties, but still just one of those guys who's very inconsistent. You consider a guy like Miguel Sano as a tournament option. I mean, he's facing Chris Archer, so I mean, we're talking single bullet if you've got a lot of options. Chris Bryant is the guy I prefer there at $4,200, but for me, once again, it's Todd Frazier. He's too cheap, $2,800, had 2 doubles last night. Crushed that price tag. He gets a lefty at home today. Need I say more? We're going to see a lot of second, third base, Kipnis, Frazier combos in cash games, and we should, if you ask me. Other guys to consider here, there's not a whole lot of them. David Wright, another Mets batter, went over 4 after his big return. Certainly a guy you can consider, though. Justin Turner at $3K, and then another guy to consider down here, a little bit more expensive in your tournament, is Adrian Beltre. Not picking on David Price, but if you're throwing a single bullet in there, certainly not stacking Texas, but Beltre has hit lefties very well, so he's the guy that'll be on my radar just a little bit here. And that's about it for third base. I'm sorry, I did skip one on second base. Enrique Kike Hernandez, whatever you like to call him. If he's in the lineup, hopefully not batting 8th like he was last night, certainly considering him. Shortstop options, another one of these chalk plays for you. Johnny Peralta going to be a very popular play in cash games. $2,400 gets another lefty. This one, Patrick Corbin. So certainly considering him as your top overall option when you consider price. Have to like Troy Tulowitzki at $3,800. A couple nice games in a row for him. And then your other options here are going to be some cheap guys. You got Eugenio Suarez, $3,100. Didn't do anything last night, but this guy's still been mashing left-handed pitching, so he's a guy I'm looking at a little bit. Jose Reyes struggled over a few games here, but Shelby Miller is much better against righties than lefties, so you're considering him. Alcides Escobar, for me, $2,600. He just hasn't been great. When he's down 22-23, I think he's kind of a lock play for me in most scenarios, but not tonight. Jimmy Rollins has been hitting the ball very well recently. $2,500. If you want to swerve off of Johnny Peralta, you get Rollins at Great American Ballpark. I think that's a great way to go as well. Outfield options, Jose Bautista, probably your top option once again. Homered again last night. Now up to 30 on the season. $5,100 for him. Behind him, I slightly prefer McCutchen to Harper because he does get a lefty. It's a bigger ballpark, though, but Chris Narveson has not been good. And I mean, McCutchen is just absolutely crushing the ball right now, so you got to love him. A.J. Pollock always in play. I mean, the guy hits everyone. $4,900, though. Can be tournament-only option for me. Other guys to consider are Michael Brantley, another guy who had 2 home runs last night. He's at $3,900. You got J.D. Martinez in a great spot. Melky Cabrera, is your BVP play of the day. Absolutely phenomenal in this matchup here. His teammate Adam Eaton, another nice cash game play for you there. A couple more guys to consider that are cheap. You have a few guys like Seth Smith in the outfield. He's nice and cheap. Seth Smith in the early game. I messed that one up. Dominic Brown is the guy I was looking at. He's got a nice price tag here. Nice and cheap for the Phillies. And finally, they're getting a pitcher that is not an elite pitcher. So, I mean, who knows what's going on with them. They've been hitting the good pitchers. Maybe they don't hit Cologne tonight, but Dom Brown, a guy that I love to target with some upside. A couple other cheap guys, Rajai Davis and Johnny Gomes, near minimum punts. Johnny Gomes gets a lefty. Rajai Davis gets a lefty. That's their preferred platoon advantage as well. You assume Rajai will probably be leading off tonight. Then Yasiel Puig, $2,700. I mean, he's in the great spot tonight against David Holmberg. Puig had a decent game last night. We know he's got massive upside as well. And then one more cheap guy, or 2 more cheap guys here. Tommy Pham, Pham, Thomas Pham, whatever you want to call him, against the lefty. Patrick Corbin is in a fine spot. And then Grady Sizemore, one more cheap guy you can consider if he gets a nice lineup spot against Tyler Duffy. And that is going to wrap things up. Thanks for hanging out with me here. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out all of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.